when we pity someone, and we do it just because we feel for them, right? We got this deep, but when we do that, it comes from a lower vibration state. And so then that brings everything is lower vibration, right? But when we can just sit there and be essentially the witness, we hold our space and our energy and be the witness and listen, but not take on board, not allow our emotions to change our vibration so that it affects them. It's like we automatically lift them up. It's like we're higher. So it's a little bit like a mirror to them. It's like where it can help bring them up. So it doesn't mean we don't respond at all and just be stone faced and stoic, but it also means we just come from that. I've heard some incredible things. So you just come from that pace of understanding. Sometimes, depending on what it is, it's almost, you treat it almost as if that's normal, right? It's a normal. Yes. Because instead of going, oh my gosh, right? It's that difference in the energy. Anyway, so that's one thing I found when I'm doing stuff.
That's awesome. Well, I'm really glad that you're with us today. I'm really glad that you're with us today. And I had this feeling today that this podcast is going to be the best podcast in the universe. And not to toot my own, but every episode that we do is such gold. And I know that this is no exception. And I know that Katia is also extremely thrilled that you're with us, Deanna. So thank you so much for blessing us with some of your time and your story. And I just can't wait to get into it with you.
So I'm just so excited to be with you guys. So this is great.
Yeah, cool. One of the things that we really wanted to focus on with you today, obviously we'll ask you for a little intro, and then we want to get into the scientific and the spirituality background. So if you can just give everybody a little snap into your life and who you are, and then we'll just get right into all the awesomeness.
Okay. So my name is Deanna Frey. I am the creator and owner of Blue Skies Journey. This company, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, came about as a result of me walking my journey and realizing, you know what, there's other people that are going to want to be able to understand these things or know these things. And so over this time, I've been in business here for over 8 years now. And so as I've walked in that path, I've changed. My business has changed. And the way I work with people has changed and grown as I have grown. So I'm even more powerful, if you will. Mm-hmm. My background is as a scientist, and we'll talk about that. I have a master's in organic chemistry from Duke.
And sorry, I don't like Duke. I'm not a Duke fan. Sorry.
And I have a minor in biology is from undergrad. And I spent about 25 years or so doing research in various forms. So I bring that background to what I'm doing. So when we're talking science, we're looking at, yep, this is it. There's the nerd scientist right there. That's me. But I started walking my path. It's been really opening up and embracing this for about 13 years now. It's been just a little over 13 years when I first started doing this. So I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I see clients as well as online. And I'm married and I have a beautiful adult daughter and a couple of fur babies and stuff, and even a turtle. And I have a turtle who is, she has been with me 39 years. So she's at least 40 years old.
That's amazing.
I didn't realize that you were like in the heart of, what is it, college basketball, football, like UNC, yes. Duke, Wake Forest is there too. You are right in.
Yep.
We're
right in the middle of it. NC State, UNC, Duke, all in that immediate vicinity. And then if you go a little bit farther out, then you've got Wake Forest.
I'm super excited. As soon as you said organic chemistry, that was one of my favorite parts of chemistry when I took it, and I loved it. So cool. You're speaking my language.
It's a lot of times when I tell people I'm a chemist, they're, oh my God, that was the hardest thing. And to be fair, it was hard for me too. When I took it in college, I graduated from the University of Tampa, a little bitty school in Florida. And when they were doing things back then, they were doing this thing they called the bimester. And so they took a whole semester and they cut it in half. So that means your class was 7 weeks. Well, that works for English. So instead of going for an hour lecture a day, you go for 2 hours. right? So that works great for English. But I tell you what, trying to grasp and understand organic chemistry in 7 weeks is a lot. And
Sure.
the first time around, I did excellent in lab. So I think that's part of my spiritual bit. It was like intuitively, I could do great when it was came time to make the things and do the things. I was awesome. But when it came time to spitting things out on a test, no. And so I dropped out just at the very last minute and then came back and did it. And by the time I came back, it had settled enough. And I was like, oh, straight A's, which made all the other people in the class really mad.
I just had a moment while you were talking too, and I wanted to give Kati crap because we were in Asheville, North Carolina, and we should have made the trip to come see you.
Yes, we're not that far away.
Man, why didn't we
Not
think
my
of that?
fault.
No, I blame you.
That was a world. Okay, so we went by car from Calgary all the way to Asheville. That's far. That's days and days of travel, and then we still have to
38
make our way
hours.
back.
38 hours.
It's only
of time.
about 4.5 hours to here, where you could be, and just for a little while, bracing the basketball community. There's a lot more of other stuff here too, but yeah. Anyway, so after doing 38, right?
Well, right, and
Yeah.
and my cousins, I should have went to see them too. They're in Atlanta, but I didn't realize I've always wanted to go to UNC and see the Tar Heels, and I went to Notre Dame with Kati when we were younger, and we took a tour there. So there's some. I used to love college sports a lot, and I would say that University of North Carolina would be like on my tours list of places that I'd want to see. No offense to you and Duke, but I
Well,
just didn't
yeah,
want to be
as a
Christian
Duke
later.
alum, I'll let you say that. Remember, we talked about mirroring what the other person said. Okay, that's nice.
But every good team needs a great rival, and I think that's one of the greatest rivalries in
It
all
is.
of sports. So you have to
Yeah,
be
and it's
grateful for
been
your
that way.
rival. Yeah.
It's been that way for years and years. And what's interesting is that the other NC State, which kind of should be the other rival, right? They're both the state. They're in the system. They're both ones that they should be the rivals. They're not. It's Duke and UNC for whatever reason.
So on my other podcast, and I'm
Yes.
so glad you're here because I actually do want you to come onto Firmamental as well. But on my other podcast, we had a guy and he was just absolutely driving me crazy, one of the guests. And I'm not going to say who or whatever, but he was going on and on about the evils and the darkness that's out there. And the whole time I'm sitting there just shaking my head. I'm like, man, I can't wait for Deanna to talk about all the goodness out there and all of the strength, because people who have real faith in God know that the army of good is so much stronger and so much better than the army of darkness. And I think you are such an expert in that. And I'm so excited to get into it with you.
Okay. Well, it's true. So there's a couple different things there. One, the scientist in me says, so this is where you bring the two of them together. The scientist in me says, in order to have light, you have to have dark. In order to have dark, you have to have light, right? So they balance, and that's why you have the yin and the yang. You have it to understand both. So we do have to understand and embrace and comprehend the dark on some level. The second part of that, the spiritual part of that says energy goes where your interest is, where the energy goes. So in other words, if you look and think about it, you do this all the time, right? If you look and see everything negative, then that's all you're going to see. That's all and you're just going to get more and more of it. If you've ever done anything, let's say you're on a diet, right? And you can't have chocolate. What do you see everywhere you go? Somebody brings you some chocolate. There's an ad for it on television. It's bombarded because you're going, I can't do it, right? And so you just attract more. It's like really pushing at you. So if you concentrate on the evil or the darkness that's out there, that's what you're going to see, and that's what you're going to attract. So if you don't want that, doesn't mean ignore it. It doesn't mean pretend, it never existed, but you're going to surround yourself with the energy that essentially keeps it away. No, I'm doing with this energy. I'm not doing that. You want to do that? You go someplace else. But that's not happening here.
I believe that the dark energy is not necessarily the devil or demons. For me, it just feels like heavy, dense energy, and it has still potential to be transmuted into light energy. So I always think that the dark serves a purpose, that it's actually there to present itself as an illusion so that you can come into the awareness that, there's something here that's I have to shift, that I have to move, or that I have to experience and learn to grow. So for me, that's what evil is. So I'd love to know, what is your take on that dark energy?
So it's really interesting, Kati, because when as an energy healer, as I put my energy healer hat on here, when I'm working with people's energy, I'm looking for those dark places and think a little bit about, and what it is stuck energy. It's not, oh, that's a bad place, right? It's like stuck energy. It's think about if you don't, which sometimes I'm guilty of this, if you don't dust for a while, right? What happens? It gets like, it builds up, right? There's stuff builds up. It's not fun to look at. It's grayish. It's whatever. It's not light, beautiful light. It's like grayish, whatever, right? So if you have energy that builds up in your body for whatever reason, usually it's mental or emotional stuff that just gets stuck in a place in your body. If that happens and it gets stuck, then it's going to look grayish. And for some people, they see it differently. For me, when I sense it as a darker or heavier thing, it's just the way I'm able to read that energy. But at no point do I go, oh, that's really evil, right? It would have to it'd take a whole lot for that energy to get worse. The other thing I should say is that when we see some of these, a negative energy, even if we perceive it as something like a demon or some kind of entity like that, it's almost as if the more energy we give that, it's like, here's that kind of blob of energy that we need to clear, but it just keeps getting bigger. And if we get afraid or angry, we're feeding anger into that thing. And so it just blossoms and takes that energy on, right? And so it becomes bigger and worse. So fear energy, negative energy, hate, anger, all of that feeds into it and makes it worse, right? And then along comes somebody who goes, oh my God, that's evil. Well, it didn't start that way necessarily. And with some of the work I have been trained to do, which is to help transmute things, even as a warrior of light kind of thing, all those dark energies don't want to be dark, right? There might be some that do, but most of them want to return to the light, just like us. We all want to be ascended. When we leave here, we all want to go, woo, this is great. Let's go to that great place, right? Whatever that is for us. They're attracted to the light too, just like a moth. So ultimately, they want to go back, but they have been in this dark place because it's almost like, here, I'll hide you away. They've been in this dark place. They want to go back or they wouldn't come out, like you're saying, right? Come up. And so our job is like, here you go. Let's help you. Let's help you go.
It's really frustrating to me to watch the news or to look at a lot of parts of social media where they're really just ramming their mission. If they want to push negativity, they're doing a great job of it. And I think Katya and I do a really good job of staying away from that as best as possible. Still, you'll hear in the ether, this is going on or that's going on. And I'm always surprised at how many people give so much of their passionate energy to this programming and feed this. I guess it creates the collective experience. And I find that frustrating. I really want people to wake up to the fact that they are being programmed by whoever is writing the script on TV.
Yeah, it's the fallacy here, is the danger here, is from the people who constantly, whoever they may be, constantly try and push on us that we are other, right? In other words, you and I are not alike. We're not alike as somebody 5 countries away, right? At the end of the day, we're all humans having the same experience. We're trying to do the same thing. We don't watch the animals, right? If we look at animals that are natural and they're at a higher vibration than we are, we don't see a herd of saying, go, you're not in my herd, go away, right? Generally speaking, it's stay away from me. I don't want to see you, right? We have this tendency for whatever reason of people, maybe it's from fear, from concern, whatever their issues are, but trying to convince us that we're not all alike. Right? In other words, that we're all something different. And so when you do that, when you push difference, it makes people worried and it makes people scared. There's that energy, right? They're putting that energy into it and it just makes it worse.
It's a lot easier to kill people when you dehumanize them. Or when you dehumanize
absolutely.
A group. And I always am so frustrated because the playbook is always the exact same. And even now on the news, it's this dehumanizing of this group, whether it be race or what have you. It's it's frustrating as a person that's ascending and wanting the rest of humanity to ascend too and not fall for the lower vibrational tricks.
It's hard. I know as I've been doing this, I've come across the fact and into the realization that You probably have heard this term before, that I'm an old soul, right? And there have been times when I have seen some visions, which, as again, as a scientist, are you kidding me? But anyway, I was like, okay. But there are feelings that I have as I watch some of these happen, the things happen. And remember, we're talking about I'm keeping back, not being in the deliberately, and just sitting there going, oh my God, here we go again. How many times does humanity have to go through this? How many times do we have to annihilate each other? How many times do we have to do whatever the things are? And for me, a lot of times, it's just this kind of a little bit of a sadness, a little bit of a frustration of like, when are you going to get it right to watch it, right? And you just see it happen over and over again. Even us, as we remember history, it's not, some of this stuff's not that long ago. Just look it up, right? Yeah, it's hard to watch it, right? To see, and it makes you feel bad. It's, oh, I wish they wouldn't fall into that, right? I wish they wouldn't. What are you gonna do? That's the other part of this for each of us as we're taking our takeaway from this is our experience here.
I think the answer is to start a podcast and enlighten people.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The thing we need to remember is we all have free will, right? Mm-hmm. And so whatever our experience is here, we choose it from our actions every day, whatever we choose or don't choose. Even not choosing is an action. I've learned that myself too, from just little things. So the end of the day, yes, we would love people to get it, right? But they have got to get it on their own time in their own place. We can show them some things, right? But
yeah. And when they're ready, let them come to me. So it's funny because you're both Virgos, and I can see the way you guys think is so similar. And I am not concerned at all about the people who are still watching the news and staying in the vibration. You know what? That is not for me to deal with. When somebody comes to me with their illusions and they're ready to go deep and explore, I'm your girl. Come to me. I will go into that dark place with you and bring you out as best I can.
Yeah. And I do that too. There's the part of me, a big part of me is also a teacher, right? And so there is that desire to help teach people. And so even just by coming on your podcast and be able to go, hey, you just said something I never thought of before, right? I never thought about that before. I see that now, right? And of course, when people come to me and say, I know something's wrong, and that's what people do. I know something's wrong, right? I know something's wrong. I need some help. And okay, let's go, right?
I'm actually really curious as to how you go from scientist to blue skies journey. Was there like a moment, or was there like an overwhelming buildup of things?
So what happened as a scientist was being in that research area. And if you choose to, for instance, work in something like pharmaceuticals as a researcher, you're there because you want to make a difference, right? I didn't want to be a doctor or a nurse or whatever. I didn't want to go through all of that, but I could still make a difference by finding medicines that may save people's life, etc. So that's why you do it. As you're going through all that and you look at stuff and you go, why do these people, they're all different, they're all the same, and yet they respond differently to this medicine? What's going on? There's another piece here. Why do cancer treatments work for some people, but not others? Even though on paper, everything looks the same. There's got to be something else. And so, because I'm a scientist, always been curious. I've always been curious about the spiritual, otherworldly stuff. The skeptic in me is, I'm curious, but I'm not going to believe you just because you say to. Right. And so I started investigating kind of things for myself. It started with a reading that I had with a friend that was with somebody I trusted, and it got me researching and looking and stuff like that. So I started my journey looking with things. I started with Reiki because Reiki is one of those energy healing modalities that's got a lot more uptake from the general community, even the health community. You'll find Reiki practitioners in hospitals because there's evidence kind of that shows that it helps people perform better before and after surgeries. They have much shorter recovery times, all those kind of things. So it was the next closest thing to science, right? It had a little bit of background to it. So I started there, and then that helped open up my intuition. As a Virgo, I'm incredibly grounded. As a scientist, I'm incredibly grounded. So you have to really push to get me to open my intuition channel. That's what happened, and I discovered things along the way. And then the job gave me this opportunity where it was like, okay, that job's coming to an end. Go off and get another one like it. Sure. They're all here. But when it came time, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I couldn't bring myself to interview for it. And I had already had conversations with kind of my spiritual team, my intuition that said, you're going to do healing. Now's the time. You got the training. You said you were going to do it. Let's go. And so that's Blue Sky's journey started off as doing specifically Reiki and also teaching people about how to use pendulums and things about essential oils and doing mediumship kind of development and stuff like that. That's how Blue Sky's journey started. And so that's how I came to that, because as I learned, it's like, if I learned all this cool stuff about pendulums or how to develop your intuition or how to do mediumship, well, there's other people that want to learn that too. And they don't know anything about it either, right? And they're flailing going, who do I talk to? Sometimes it's just people want somebody else as they're developing, because they don't want to talk to their friends or neighbors because they're not quite ready yet. They want somebody else they can talk to about stuff and share stuff with. And so that was my path too. I'm like, hey, that's like me. Let me help them. So that's where it started. That's how I make the kind of leap between the two. Still helping though, right? If I'm still in a thing where I'm helping people, that's what I was doing as a scientist. That's what I'm doing now.
So as far as the healing goes, is that when you're working with the angels to heal people, or can you explain that a little bit to me?
Sure.
How you're healing them?
In a whole variety of ways. It depends on what they need, right? So when I'm doing energy healing, I learned to, and I've actually now picking up another one, but I learned two very specific energy healing modalities. One being Reiki, which we've heard of. The other one is archangelic light healing, which although it says archangels, it certainly is with angels. There are angels involved. It's actually a divine feminine energy. And so those two, so when I first started, because I'm a Virgo and I'm a scientist, I had to keep things very separate. Okay, you can have a Reiki session or you can have an archangelic light session. Nobody knew what archangelic light was. And I went somewhere where I was doing some free healing sessions for people. And they didn't know me. They didn't know anything about me. And during the session, I just realized that things were crossing over a bit. And I was like, well, I don't ever have to see them again if it goes bad. If it doesn't work, then if it's just, but everybody was like, oh my gosh. And so then I ended up bringing them together. So when I do an energy healing session, it is both Reiki and archangelic light. I do, because it's one, it all is the same energy in the respect. It's all divine universal energy. It's just different ways of bringing them in. So if you think about radio stations, right? Right now, there's all kinds of radio stations in the airwaves around us. But how do you grab just one? You tune into that one and you bring it down to hear it. So though when I do Reiki or archangelic light, I have tuned my body to be able to channel energy in such a way that's the energy that I pull out and channel to somebody else. So it's very intelligent energy. It's that universal divine energy. I don't have to know what to do with it. It's not really my thing to know specifically per se, because then I'm acting, oh, I know better than everybody else, right? Nope. My job is to channel it where it needs to go and figure that out. So when I'm doing healing in that way, that's what I'm doing. And yes, angels do come through depending on where I'm working. If somebody needs a message in a certain place, there are certain angels that work with certain areas of the body or certain things, and they will come through and give messages. So yes, in that respect, there is there is healing with the angels in that. That's one of the ways. The other way is through quantum healing hypnosis, which is different.
It's so crazy because I am a recovering Catholic. And so anything to do with archangels and angels and Mary and Jesus was such a huge turnoff for me as I was stepping into spirituality. And I have had a session with you, angel light healing session, virtually. It was crazy how, as a Catholic, I didn't actually know what any of that energy felt like. So when they spoke of Jesus and Mary, that had no bearing on me, because when I take information in and process, it's through feeling. So that's just the Scorpio. I just have to feel it so that I can believe it and know it. And so when you brought it through and Mary came through for my heart, I felt that energy for days afterwards. And I'm like, oh, that's what it was supposed to feel like when they spoke of Mary. And as you brought in all these other angels, and then I'm like, okay, so now I have to recalibrate my mind this kind of stuff, angels are not, it's not wrong. It doesn't have that leftover stink of Catholicism.
Yeah. There's two things about that. One, first of all, for one of the things I've discovered for myself, I wasn't brought up Catholic. So for me, all of these different angels is okay, whatever. I don't know anything about that, right? I knew guardian angels. Sure. There's some angel watching over me. Sure. I might've heard a little bit about Michael, but that was it. So I didn't have that background. But what I have learned as I'm walking my path is I am closer to God, the divine, whatever you choose to call it, than I have ever been in an organized religion. That's just me. And that's because for me, a lot of times I see those religions more as institutions that's trying to get everybody to think the same. But at the end of the day, your relationship with the divine, with whomever, is your individual relationship. It's going to be different than Alex's. It's going to be different than mine. And it's supposed to be because we are different. And so you have got to feel it. You can't be told how you're supposed to feel. You got to actually feel it. So there's that piece. The other piece that's really interesting to me, because if you had said, and I say this all the time to my students too, if you had said, I'm going to be talking to angels, I would have been like, you're just nuts. No, I'm not. And then as I walk this path, everything is energy, right? They are just energy too. And interestingly enough, if you get to know them, they're not associated with a religion. They don't care. I do archangelic light healing for Hindus or Muslim or atheists. They don't care. They're energetic beings that hold a certain frequency. Just like that radio we were talking about, right? They hold a certain frequency. That's what they do. And so if we look at them from that perspective of these beautiful beings that are here to cheer us on, because that's what they are. Most of these angels, especially the archangels, there's two that have definitely been human before, but most of them have never incarnated before. So they've never had a body like we do. So it's really interesting to see that they are so excited and so willing to help us because we decided to do this incredibly difficult thing of being in a physical body where we give up all the things that we can do when we come here, right? And so they're just in awe of the fact that we chose to come to this place, not even having any idea what we were supposed to be doing. We have to figure it all out for ourselves and and come out the other side. And so they're like, hey, if you want some help, I'm here for you. Yeah, I'm here to help you. So we didn't even think about, we could ask all these people. How awesome is that? I asked a couple of angels before we came on today, Gabriel for communication and Jophiel for joy. I love having Jophiel around. And so I can feel it. I'm like, I'm already feeling, I'm feeling joyful. So, they're here to help us. They're here to help everybody. It's not, oh, you have to be good or you have to be, no. It's not like Santa. You're not going to get coal right? They're there to help if you ask. So anyway,
that's so amazing. And that's one of my biggest takeaways from you in knowing you and our paths having crossed is that when I travel now, and I am scared to death of flying. Like flying for me is a big deal. I'm sure that's a past life thing. I every time will call on Archangel Raphael to come and put his green light all around the airplane. And I can honestly just see him and feel him holding the plane up for me. And that has made all the difference.
And a lot of people don't. We all think about Archangel Raphael for healing, but he very much helps with travel. So now the only difference I do, Kadi, is I usually have Archangel Michael do that and Raphael to make sure all the stuff goes according to plan, like everything's on time. I'll ask for we've gotten upgrades before. I love that. I'm like, sure, I'll take that upgrade. I'm sure whatever makes it better. My husband was traveling home from Hong Kong one time in the winter time, and he was already sick. And when you travel from Hong Kong back to the US, it's a good 28 hours. It's a long, because you lose time and the flight itself is really long. And we were having a blizzard here, and like all the East, in Chicago where he was transferring in was all snowed under. Down here was a mess. It was just a real nightmare. And his plane was already in the air because it's been in the air for hours because it takes so long. It's a long flight. And they were closing Chicago. All the flights were going down, all of them. And when he arrived, they were like the only people in customs because all the other planes had been turned away or stopped or whatever. So they went right through customs And here's the really funny thing. They were going to put him on another plane and they canceled that flight out from under him. And the actual flight that was still there was the original flight he was supposed to take. So even though he had been delayed, they had delayed that original flight. And that was the only plane that made it out to Raleigh. That was the only one of the only few planes that left Chicago. And I had been the whole time, I'm like, come on, guys, we got to do this. Please understand how sick he is. You've got to bring him home to me. He came home within an hour of his original arrival time, despite heavy snow in multiple places and not such good weather. And that's because I asked for it, right? I really asked for it. So that you'll get help. You'll get help. When I see stuff, that's how the scientist in me works, right? How do I know? And well, if I get results, if I ask and nothing happens, who cares? Right? If I ask and it does happen, wow, look at that. So anyway.
I think so much of us are trained when we're children to not ask for things. After a while, I'll just do it myself. I won't ask for help, or I have to. This is such a good reprogramming lesson right now. And when you were talking to Katya, I had this flashback to when Katya and I somehow magically manifested a yoga retreat from our friends. And we went to this beautiful place, and we had almost no business going, but it was just such a blessing that we were there. And I was reading the book of Enoch, and I did not realize that I was actually thinking about you quite a bit, because in the book of Enoch, the archangels are showing him all of these incredible things. And the book of Enoch is his recollection of these things. I don't know how he was in. How do you find the words to show you things that angels show you? It's amazing. I don't know if you've read the book of Enoch, but the things that you talk about, it blows my mind that there is this book out there.
Yep. And that and some other things are part of the reason they're taken out, is because there's also talk in there about reincarnation. There's talking about how often, right? And so the church, in their infinite wisdom, decided they don't want people to know about it, right? Because if you believe that, oh, well, if I don't do things right, I'll just do it again. Right? So then you'll go off and be unruly or unlawful or whatever. So they wanted to control people. So they made things, this is it. You're not getting in heaven. If you don't do it, work it out now, that's it. There's nothing else. And so that kind of put the fear into people, like, I better behave. Right? And so some of those books, and in fact, some of the prophets, Elijah and Enoch, is it Enoch? Wow. I'm trying to remember. Are actual archangels, and I'm trying to remember which one is such. Elijah is Sandalphon. I think Enoch is Metatron. Anyway, I always get them confused. So those are the two that actually have been people before. They've actually incarnated here.
Enoch did not die. That's one of his claims.
Yes, right.
To fame.
He was taken. Right. He was taken. That's when he became an archangel. Right.
I did not know that. So have you actually communicated with Enoch?
Oh, I work with Metatron all the time. I don't talk with Enoch. I work with Metatron all the time. Now everybody's going to have a different view of how these angels are, right? And so I did and somebody said, how do I do that? Well, just sit down in meditation and ask to work with them, right? They will come to you, and it may not happen immediately. Just keep doing it. So I sat down with each of the major archangels that I work with and said, you're going to have to show me something so that I know it's you, right? And Metatron was very fun because he presented himself to me, Hagrid from Harry Potter. Big, so not your average, because he isn't an average angel. Humongous, just like Hagrid is not quite a giant, but he's like in between. Right. And think about it, if you watch Harry Potter and like it, he's that lovable. Hagrid is that lovable kind of. He's trying his, and so when I see Metatron, he's just presents like that, which shows to me that he's that level. It's something that appeals to me because Hagrid appealed to me. He was like, look, I can show you myself, my big energy in that way. And that's what I have another archangel who originally presented to me as the bust of Caesar, literally the white bust of Caesar. That's all I saw was the white bust of Caesar from the side with his mouth talking to me for a long time, which I was just like, okay. Eventually doesn't do that anymore, but that's what, for whatever reason, that's what I could handle. That's what I got, whatever it was.
I'm actually fascinated by this. The mediumship with regular people that die, how long did it take you to get to the angel level to no longer do like the mediumship of people that have passed, but to work with the angels?
So it was really a conscious effort because one, I had done, so when I did when I became entrained to archangelic light healing, it helps me to be entrained to that energy, open me up a little bit better because remember, I'm that super grounded person. So then after that, I did a class where that was part of the thing. It was like to get to know these archangels. So I had to force, it was literally, I had to force myself to sit down. And some of the homework was, you have to meditate with this archangel 5 times, right? You have to sit there for however long and do it. And so that's how I got to that place. What I will say is that once I started really talking with them, and I should probably tell you what talking for me means because it may be different than other people. But once I started talking with them and basically bringing my energy up, it was very difficult. I struggle to do mediumship now because it's once you're so used to, so for people that may or may not understand, right? When we are doing mediumship, in order to speak with someone that has passed, their energy is already vibrating higher than us because they're not in physical body anymore. They don't have a physical body holding them on down. So what we have to do is we have to raise up our energy and they have to lower theirs enough and we meet in the middle. So you can imagine if I'm raising my energy up to go, angels are higher energy. If I'm raising my energy to go way up there, it's hard for me to get back down to the middle. It's like, it's almost like the coarse tuning and the fine tuning, right? In order to get to the angels, it's that big jump. It's a huge course. And now you're trying to get me to come back down. It's very difficult. I can get to animals better. I can get to pets because they vibrate higher than people. But yeah, so it's actually a little bit hard. Now, there are a lot of people that do not have the same problems I do. I'm got to be unique, got to be different. They have no problem talking anyway. But I find personally for me, it's easier to work with the angels than it is to work with someone who's passed. Now, anyway.
I'm just waiting for Kathy to say something. But in the meantime, I am already designing the t-shirt that says the leftover stink of Catholicism.
As soon as that came out, I regretted it.
Your mom's going to be so mad.
My mom doesn't listen. Now, I will say this is that you're right. Your friends and family are not your biggest fans. So the purpose of doing this is not to bring you closer to your friends and family, but to try and reach people who are ready to hear something specific, or maybe they're going to be inspired by something that we've said. So everything you're saying, which is why I'm struggling to say something after, is because it's like sinking in and hitting me still. And it's like, when I go back to listen, I'm going to have to write it all down.
So when we heal, when you do what you're doing, when I'm working with energy and healing things and seeing things, and especially when I'm doing like past life regressions or quantum healing hypnosis sessions, I get brought people that I can relate to, that I really need. So I'm learning things even about how energy works or how just through what they're doing. So not only are you educating people or helping people, show people different things by doing this podcast, you're also yourself growing, right? If you're open, there's no way that you can't grow when you're exposing yourself to other things. It's like you're helping people and you're helping you too. So it's
So what does a
100%.
session with you look like for anyone who's curious? And
which kind of session?
I don't want to spoil it, but the kind of sessions that you would have done with us where we go down and there's the light and
yeah. So if I'm doing an energy healing session, so energy healing sessions can be done in person or online, of course. So and I usually use Zoom for folks because I like to still have that connection with you. If you're doing something in person, then I do things slightly different because it's literally just, okay, get nice. I've got you in this nice environment. We get you relaxed and away I go. And we just start working with the energy. When I'm doing a distance session, I really want to get you and I in what I will call like the quantum field. I want us to get our energy up where I can easily get to you. That's the idea of distance healing, is that we're going across time and space, right? And so we start with that, essentially a guided meditation where I am bringing you into this place. We're getting you relaxed and taking you to that place where I can work with you. Now, other distance healers don't necessarily do that. That's me. That's what I do. And usually before I start, I bring in some of the angels like, hey, can you clear this up before we go and this one? And then we'll just go to whatever we're doing. So when you have a session with me, you will start with beautiful music. You'll relaxed, reclining, relaxed. and I will give you a guide. I'll be talking to you with a guided meditation, and then we'll get to a place where you're left in the beautiful light, right? And then in the music, and you have whatever experience you're meant to have, right? That's a wonderful time where you'll get intuition and feeling and whatever. Some people nap, and you know what? That's fine too, because that means I tell people, if you fall asleep during my session, it's not a bad thing, because that means sometimes our mind is too active, right? And if you got 50 million thoughts running around, how do we get that energy? And this energy is like trying to dodge the thoughts to get into our body, right? So if you fall asleep, that's okay too. But you're in that kind of state, and I'm behind the scenes doing everything, doing the healing. And I always use a surrogate, and I actually have him right here. His name is Duke because he's blue. And so he will be the surrogate for you, so I can directly work through you on the parts of the body or whatever it is that you need. And so I see it. I'm in this space where I can see things and tell you, and then I come back when we're done and I say, okay, here's what I did. Here's what I saw. Sometimes people get homework. Here's the things I saw, etc. And that's what the whole session is about. And yeah, it's just as powerful in person and distance as in person. So that's one way. That's one of the sessions I do. Then I do different sessions as well. We can talk about those if you want to. Those are quantum healing. Those are much longer. An energy healing session is 90 minutes. Right? Because I want to have a little bit of time to talk ahead of time. What's going on? Set your intentions. What do you want to get from this? What is it you feel is going on? And we'll set those intentions first. Then we do the healing. And then about 15 or 20 minutes at the end of going, here's what happened. How are you feeling? All that stuff. So
and that can be individual or group too.
Yeah, I do some group. Yeah. In fact, I do have a monthly. Usually I try and do it every season. At least one where I do essentially a night of healing, where I have to limit it to 8 or 10 people, because I can't do everybody. Because I always want to give everybody a few minutes, like targeted few minutes. And then we have a bigger thing that goes in. Yeah. So that's really cool. That's a guided meditation. And then whomever comes in, the angels, whatever, come in and actually do a bunch of stuff too, I go individually do whatever somebody needs. Yep.
And those nights of healing, that's a good way to get your feet wet. If you have reservations, you're not sure, to go to something like that where you get to experience and witness other people's confirmations and healing. And then plus you get a little bit yourself. That's how you and I and Alex even came about. We went to a group healing night, and then it was like, oh, okay. So for me, there's always this, and maybe there's a teeny tiny scientist in me too, where you have to prove it to me. I need to have a little bit of the proof. So I love that guided meditation. I go down very easily, but I'm also a co-healer. I know that a part of me is present because I want to work with you. I want to be a part of the experience. And then when I come out, the things you're saying is, yeah, I felt that. Oh yeah, I saw that. So for me, it's so beautiful, the experience from start to finish.
She's the best testimonial. Cool. She's
I know,
the best
isn't
one.
she though?
I fall asleep. I don't know anything, and she's working with you.
Well, and that's what you're supposed to. I love it too, because as I'm sharing what happened, it's like you will come through and say, or someone else will come through and go, oh, I felt this tug. I wondered what that tug was. And I was like, oh, I was cutting some stuff away or whatever. Oh, and I got all of a sudden my heart, I just felt, oh, yeah, that's what was going on. Right. And even as the scientist, if I will say somebody will, even in person, will do the same thing. Will say, I'm not sure where you were. I think you were here, because they don't even know where I'm at when them. And they'll say this happened, and they didn't. Yeah. It was like, yep, that corresponds with what, but they didn't know what I was doing. Right. Right. And so there's that confirmation of how it felt for them, how I perceived it, right? Because how I perceive it is how I need to be able, I have my own dictionary. So I will perceive it in a way that I can be able to relate it to you, right? How you perceive it might be something different, but the result is still there. And when the timing works out, that's really cool.
Magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that is funny though, because I do fall asleep instantly. I'm like, okay, well, here we go.
And that's when you get a lot of it. Interesting enough, a lot of times what I tell people is when that happens, it's literally to get your mind out of the way so you can just get a whole boatload of energies. Okay, we've got this much time. Let's go. Right? If you think about a pit crew or whatever going, okay, we have just this much time. Quick. Okay, put them out. Let's go. Right?
Yeah, to me, it would be more like a hypnotherapy session.
Absolutely. Yeah.
where my conscious clears out of the way. And then it's a lot easier for you and my subconscious to do whatever needs to be done.
And that's what we're doing, right? If I'm working with you in the quantum field, that's what quantum healing hypnosis is. That's the quantum field too. So yeah, it's going to be a lot like that. So we're working in that field. Absolutely.
Okay. And what's the other?
The other stuff, the other service, they're interrelated, almost like one is a subset of another. So the other one is past life regression or quantum healing hypnosis. So past life regression is a session where it's going to be guided just what we just did is that we talked about that kind of a guided meditation. But the purpose of that is to really look at one, it can just be exploration. Cool. I want to see what's going on. And that's always cool. Mm-hmm. Or it can be, there's something that you need to work out. It's like, there is something going on in my life. I don't know. I'm really afraid of heights. I'm really afraid of heights. And it's debilitating. I don't even know why I'm afraid. Oh, well, let's see what that is. And very often there's a past life with that. So we go through, we understand it, we come out, we heal it, we do whatever else needs to happen around it. Very interesting. Quantum healing hypnosis takes it a little bit farther because you do that past life first. And you don't necessarily you don't have to come with a problem if you're coming to quantum healing hypnosis. A lot of times there is some particular physical thing somebody wants healing or emotional. Maybe they just want clarity. Maybe they want to understand their purpose, get some help along with things that are going on in their life. In that session, we start with a past life regression and we have whatever your higher self wants to show you, whatever message or experience your higher self wants you to have to help you in your life right now. Then we do any healing, and we're in that space where the higher self comes in and does all kinds of interesting things to help heal physical, emotional, remove energy blockages, whatever. And then the other part that's particularly cool, this is the part that people really love, is when you can sit down with a list of questions and ask your higher self for guidance. So this is when your higher self's really coming in and talking to you, and you can say, and I have a list on my website and a blog of common questions people ask that are all kinds of things, from spiritual things, including, am I going to stay in this state? What job should I do? How can I better help my children, my spouse? Was I ever born someplace else? How many times? What I tell people is just ask. If it's a question that I think is just totally out there, I'll let you know. But the bottom line is all we can do is ask. And your higher self will either answer or go. Even my higher self said to me one time, yeah, I'm not gonna tell you that. I'm like, why aren't you going to tell me? Because it's not going to help you in that lifetime. So you don't need to know. That wasn't a very satisfying answer, but it did answer. And fortunately, most other people's higher selves tell them things. Mine didn't.
I would say that my higher self is going to be very frustrated with me because I'm going to ask these questions. It's going to tell me, and then I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to do anything. And then he's just going to be like, oh, you dummy.
Well, a lot of the questions, honestly, are confirmation questions, right? So people ask things because they want things, and then they get done and they're like, I knew most of that. I'm like, you did. Exactly. You knew it. Your higher self has been giving you that information, but you're not trusting it. And so sometimes think about it. If you see something, I really ought to do such and such a thing. Yeah, but maybe I'm just thinking, I don't know. But somebody else comes to you and goes, oh my God, you should try this. You won't believe it. What now? You'll go, oh, okay, now I'll do it. Because somebody else said it, right? You got another person, another authoritative person out there that said to you, that would be a good thing to do. They've confirmed what you already believed. So sometimes the higher self comes in and just confirms what you already know, but you didn't necessarily. And sometimes it comes totally out of left field. You're like, wow, okay, I hadn't thought about that. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting.
I don't think we've done either of those. What do you think?
I haven't done past life regression or quantum healing.
I could totally see you going for past life regression, though. You have all sorts of quirky things. I feel like I'm just a new soul. I'm totally pure.
Well, so you may. So my guess is, even at best, at whatever, I'm not even sure how to say that, you may be new here, Alex, but I'm sure you're not new in general. So every once in a while we'll get people I love those sessions. So I've done well over 200, 220 now, somewhere in that vicinity, between quantum healing hypnosis and past life regressions for people. And I've seen it's just amazing. People have been rocks or crystals. People have been particles at the beginning of the universe, that point at which Big Bang comes out. A variety of different extraterrestrials creating things, or being almost you might think of like some of the angels that created like this planet or the things like that, or just somebody from 150 years ago. Some people have been weird things. You call them weird. My past life was a fairy. I have not had anybody else be a fairy. That was a very interesting experience. Sometimes it's parallel lives, which are really interesting. That blew my mind when I first started doing this. And I'm like, because I'm going, okay, so yeah, they're young. If they die within the next 2 years, they could still make it and be born now, right? And then the person's life just keeps going and it goes past the time right now. And I'm like, okay, it was like, that is really interesting. But all the things I learned, I learned from doing the sessions and see these amazing things. And it's very cool. And the people get the most amazing things. I never know what's going to happen, right? They get exactly what they're supposed to get, whatever that may be, whether it's physical healing, emotional healing, a perspective change. I've done husband and wife sessions, separate sessions, but part of the reason they came to me is because they had tried everything else for marriage counseling, and they just couldn't see any way forward, but they didn't really want to separate, right? And they'd been doing this for years and going around in a circle with all the various therapies. And so they came in and they each had their own session and were given totally different perspectives on things. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay. All right. Oh, you mean I've done this before? And I said, I don't ever want to do it again. Now we know why I'm not doing it, because I swore I'd never do it again. Aha. There you go. All these kind of interesting things. So yeah, it's people coming with physical things and going out without those pains anymore. Wow. All right. Cool.
You know what? I have to say, as you were talking, it's like something changed in your voice all of a sudden. Here, did you notice that? Something changed, and I'm like, I'm getting tired. Something is very calming, just fell into this space. I'm like, what was that?
Yeah, it's part of the energy. And there's a thing of modulating your voice. And what's interesting is when I do it, I can feel it. So you were talking a little bit about feeling the energy. So there are times when I'm working with somebody and I'm talking and I'm in the process of helping them and I could feel the energy in my chest because it's a different vibe. Like I can literally feel my voice vibrating in my chest a little bit at some level. And I'm like, it's picked up the energy. The energy's got it. And I can tell, I'm like, that's got to be it, because I can feel it. Yeah, it's interesting.
That's fun. I think that we're going to sign up for some of that stuff. I think it would be pretty interesting. Maybe even do it on
really
the show.
Cool. It's well, so what I will tell you is this. The quantum healing hypnosis sessions run 4 to 5 hours. They're not short. So wow. The hypnosis part itself runs around 2 hours or whatever. That's what my kind of theory is. If I've got you down, if I've got you under and into a trance, I want to make sure we get everything that you want, right? So I try and make sure I get everything in that time. If we don't need that much time, then we don't need that much time. Part of that intro part of that is us talking, so I understand you a little bit better. I get to know you, your background, what you want, because my job is to ask questions. And so in order for me, I'm listening to everything that you're experiencing. So I'm going along with you on the ride. And so my job is to make sure I get the information you need. So if something's happening to you in a past life and I can see, oh, that has relevance, right? Then I can make sure we really get in and ask the questions and get the feeling and get all that stuff so that you get what it was you needed. And all you have to do is just experience it. You don't have to be thinking about it. In fact, I don't want you thinking about it, because then you don't get into the right level of trance. You just go like you're going to the movies. And then you got the person next to you going, what's going on? What's going on? That's so that we have a talk beforehand. Then we do the session, and then we talk a little bit about it afterwards as well.
Do you think that let's say our past life fears, let's say for example, let's say I have a crazy fear of heights. I have no idea why. Do you think that's almost like a defense mechanism for this lifetime, so that I don't do things that put me in danger? Or
yes.
Is it?
So, yep, it is. It is exactly like that. So sometimes what happens is So we have our cells in our body have what we call cell memory. So even if we don't remember it, it's on some level, a part of us remembers it. And so our ego, which is that part that is with us from the minute we're born here, its job is to keep us alive and to keep us, get us, you make it through this life. We keep you from doing all the stupid things, right? All the things. So if you are remembering something traumatic that happened and you didn't process whatever that traumatic thing was very well, then when you come into this life, you'll be like, well, don't do that. Last time you got near something high, you fell off the cliff and died. Or I had someone the other day who's just been very anxious their whole life, right? Where does that come? How do you just get born being anxious, right? But in fact, they're like, well, if you had another lifetime where something happened because you weren't paying attention, right? It's, well, that was awful. We don't want that to happen again. And so you just get hyper vigilant here. Or a very specific one, I had a client come in for something totally different, but when they booked the session, slightly before they booked the session, they started developing asthma. And it was almost like a seasonal it wasn't, and they were having problems breathing. And so when they walked into my office, just too much exertion, they would cough, right? Because they had asthma and they were coughing, trying to get. And so we were doing this session and I thought, oh dear, I don't know if this is going to work if they have to cough every 2 seconds. The slightest exertion got them having to cough. But I was able to get them down. We got into a petition. Their higher self brought forward a very particular scene. It was a scene when they were young and being chased by people for no good reason, but they were running in fear and they were killed by essentially a spear in the chest. As soon as that happened, because I had already talked to them, I knew about the asthma and all that stuff. As soon as that happened, I went, there's the asthma. But then we went back to all the other things that were going on. And at one point, that person needed to get up and use the restroom in the middle of the session, which happens sometimes. And I thought, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get them back, because if they start coughing again, because just walking down the hall caused them to cough. And I thought, oh, here we go. They went, came back, not an issue, and no coughing at all. They got up. They were breathing much easier. No, nothing. All because of that one thing that happened, and whatever it was that needed to clear, it was the trauma of that, right? Think about it. That person in that lifetime was running scared for their lives. Someone was trying to kill them for no reason other than they existed. It was bullies coming after them that had to stay, and they killed them for no particular. They were running. They could only run so far, and they got killed. So imagine that fear, that trauma. Hold that energy. Carry that energy with you. You don't get a sense to process it. You're so young. You're killed. Boom. That's it. And so that came forward and was in their chest. And so when we got to the session and we got that trauma out, it was gone. So that's an idea.
And it only took one session to clear that up.
Oh, yeah. Huh. I had somebody come in. You remember the big ones, of course. There's all the smaller ones where people's lives just change very subtly. They'll come back and go, you won't believe this, but this happened and this happened. I'm like, cool. But I did have someone who came in and it didn't work in what I would call the normal traditional way. They came in with pretty bad sciatica that they had, I think they'd had surgery for. Certainly they'd had it for years and done medicine and had to sit certain way. It was just very debilitating. And that was really their main reason for doing the session. They wanted it healed. And they came in, we did the session. It didn't hurt. I heard from them about 15 months after our session and saying, nope, I'm still good. I got up. It hasn't hurt since. Now, it doesn't always happen that way. It depends on why something is going on, but it can happen that way. And that's what's really cool.
So if I have sciatica, I'm coming to you immediately.
I had sciatica, and I would have paid lots of money to have somebody help me heal it myself, because I'm telling you, the medical system failed me.
And I don't even remember, honestly, I don't remember what we did. I think part of it, like I said, that wasn't necessarily a normal session the way I would have normally done things. But that person they were in essentially a level of trance, not necessarily directly with their higher self, like the higher self speaking to me. So between the two is like my team comes in and goes, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring in this energy. You're going to describe exactly what is going on and what's happening and let it happen and whatever. And so I listen to my team. They're working with their higher self and it's okay. What do you want me to do? Oh, okay. That's what we'll do. So,
wow, that's amazing. Kathy wants me to ask you if you can draw a card for us.
I could, but I don't. I do have, let me think. I don't, most of them are across the room. Actually, you know what I'm going to draw for you?
Yes.
I do one for each of you.
Awesome.
I like this deck because I like to use this deck when I'm doing readings for people. It's usually the last card I do, but because we're just doing one card. It's called Power Thoughts. And the Power Thought cards, and these are by the late Louise Hay. And what I find about it is I love doing them with readings because they'll come through and tell you something you need to know. And I'll be like, and it'll match like what I just said or what the other cards just said. But these are great kind of things to get you thinking about what's going on in your life and different ways to. So let's see.
I didn't even know you had cards. I guess Kathy knew.
No, she just knows I always have cards. And I didn't used to keep them near me, but I do now. Okay. Up. There's Kathy's. Okay. Hers popped out. Aha. This is so perfect for you, by the way.
The nymph.
So this card is, I experience love wherever I go. And the rest of this card is, love is everywhere and I am loving and lovable. Loving people fill my life and I find myself easily expressing love to others. Remember what I said? It's always comes through with the perfect thing. So
how do you know that's not for me?
Well, because I had already asked it was for her. So now this is yours, Alex. Okay. So what do you want?
Mine will
Alex?
be, you are hated everywhere you go.
Oh,
no, they don't have one of those here. So lucky you. Well, lucky for both of us. All right.
Let's see. I
do this.
Stink of Catholicism.
I do this until a lot of times the cards spit themselves up. Oh, this is interesting, Alex. You'll have to say if this is true or not. I am at peace with my age. Each age has its own special joys and experiences. I am always the perfect age for where I am in life.
I would say yes to that now, but there's been a few birthdays, maybe even this last one where I wasn't at peace with it. But right now I am. So
yep. So it's marking your path to where you are right now. Sometimes when the cards come through, it's like a confirmation of who you are or where you are. Sometimes it's a reminder of this is where you need to be. And these cards are written as affirmations, right? They're written for you to go, I am at peace. But when I'm using them this way, I'm using them like reading.
Yeah.
So
I like that too. I think that there's something beautiful about every one of my birthdays. And I ask Kathy, my favorite day of the year is my birthday. And
there you go.
So I must be okay with my age then.
There is, who is it? I think it was, who was I heard? I think it was like Whoopi Goldberg or somebody that said, it doesn't matter how old you are. This is exciting. There are people that never got to be this age, right? This age every age is a great age. Because what's the alternative? Not being that age.
Yeah, exactly.
Not being alive. So let's just be grateful for what it is that you have at the moment. Be grateful that you are alive to have the birthday. Yep, that's a very good.
That's a good way to look at it.
Exactly.
For sure.
So we always have our current guest leave a question for the next guest, and they've been quite intuitive. And so our last guest, Adrian, is a pastor and just an amazing man. Like the things he knows about the human body scientifically would captivate you for sure. But his question is actually really good for you too. It's, if there is something that you can't do right now that you could do in a year with hard work, what would it be?
Oh, if there was something I could do.
What would you add to the toolbox?
My bit that I'm doing, and this is perfect because it's my confirmation for let's get going, girl. Let's get going. It's to do, there's some physical health things I want to do. I want to get back into my physical journey that I let myself slide with, right? And so I do know that it is possible to do it with hard work. But there's a part of me that we're all human. Yeah, but next week, maybe I'm so busy right now.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So that would be my getting on top of diet and exercise and really doing the stuff that I know is the right thing to do. And just,
because doing the hard thing it's hard work. Like I am all about health. I love doing the healthy food thing, but then talking to him, it's but without this thing or without that thing. And he's all about food is your medicine. So I think that's
if you look at that food. And so, and it's the same thing of when we're talking about medicine or science or anything like that. So medicine is great, but if we don't have the spiritual piece, whatever that other piece is, there is something there, right? So it's okay, but it's also in reverse. I love being in the spirit. And let's face it, there's a lot of people that work in the spiritual space that just like to stay there. Like, why would I come down and confront anything down here? This sucks. I don't want to do this. Right. And so, but so then they're not balanced. But we are here, and we are here in physical bodies, but we're also spiritual beings. So we got to balance those two. Right. And so one without the other means doesn't matter. Either way, we can be the most beautiful physical specimen, so to speak. But if we don't have a spiritual piece, if there isn't something else, we're out of balance. Or we can be the most incredibly spiritual piece, but we don't pay attention to our physical body, which is housing that beautiful spiritual piece. Again, then we're out of balance. So
I've had a spiritual person tell me one time in a session, spirit wants you to know that you're spending too much time up here in fairyland and that you need to be more present in your human body. I was so upset leaving. I'm like, I love being like in fantasy world and spiritual, and yeah, sometimes it's hard in the human body.
Exactly. It's fortunately for me, and that is what I found out from when I did my own QHHT session, which is the in-person quantum healing hypnosis session. When I did my own session, I was like, so why can't I feel some of the things that other people do? Like, other people will walk in and they feel this and that and the other thing. It's like, I just have to know or see the results. I don't get to actually feel to be able to tell what's going on. Why is that? And the idea was that they had to make me incredibly grounded. So I am a Virgo, born of 2 Virgo parents. I am a scientist, right? My numerology, my life path number is a foundation builder. You don't get more grounded than all of that. And so part of the reason they said was we needed to do that, because if we didn't, you would just go be flying, and you would never be back here if we did. It's almost like when you get a balloon, when you go to the florist or something and they get a balloon and they give you that little thing to tie it on so it doesn't float away, right? I needed something to tie me down, and apparently I needed a lot of things. Otherwise, let's face it, it's more pleasant up there. You don't have to worry about anything. But here's what I also tell clients, and what I've been picking up with my own self is, look, you're only here for this much time. You chose to come to Earth. There are things here that you can experience that you cannot experience anywhere else. If you're running around as a soul or in that energy, you cannot do any of the physical things. You don't know what it's like to taste this, smell this, feel this, right? Have physical love, the joy, the whole piece of what it means to have that kind of connection with. You don't have any of that. So this is what you get here. So do it while you're here. Because what's going to happen, think about how many times you go, oh, I wish we talked about it. Oh, I was in Nashville. I should have. I wish I could have, right? It's get on the other side. It's, oh man, I wish I'd eaten, I don't know, more ice cream or whatever the thing is. So do it here. Be present in your body here and do all the cool things that you could only do here. Appreciate the sunrises. Do what it is that you can, because you won't be back for a while. Right? Whatever the situation is, you won't be back for a while. Maybe you won't come back again. Who knows? You may do something else. So enjoy it while you're here.
Now that should be everybody's morning clip. You should have that. Wake up and have that exact speech there every morning.
There you go.
Kathy's experience on Earth is whipped cream and ice cream, and she denies herself constantly. But if it's in the house, it's gone instantly. If there's whipped cream, it's over. She's taken it. And it's gone. And it's so funny. But I know what she loves. It makes her so happy.
And that's what's important, right? That's the thing. It's like it's interesting. I went through something. So I have been married twice. And in my first marriage, it was very difficult because my ex-husband had mental illness. Very difficult. He had schizophrenia. And it was a very difficult thing to do. And I remember talking with my pastor, right? One of the pastors who was there to talk, to counsel and help the congregation. And I was struggling. And she had met my husband at the time, my ex-husband, she'd met him and everything. And she knew I was killing myself trying to make this thing work when it just really wasn't meant to, honestly. But I had told myself that I had gotten, look, I made a pledge in the church to God, like, in sickness and in health. I said I would do, and so I got to stay. What the most authoritative thing, because it was so perfect, because it was from her. she looked at me and with very gently said to me, God didn't say you had to be a martyr. So I was losing who I was, becoming somebody entirely different. I certainly wouldn't be who I am now because I was trying to fix something, whatever. And
Yeah.
so it took somebody like that to come and say, God didn't expect you to be a martyr. Now, if we take that and expand it out to, you really love whipped cream or whatever, and you deny yourself that because, well, I should do. I was like, nobody told you had to do that. Enjoy your life. Figure out how to do it. Maybe you can't have it all the time. Maybe you can have it once in a little while. Whatever. If it makes, find what makes you joyful. Find what makes life worth living, and then do it. Figure out how to do it.
Perfect.
Yep.
Awesome. So, Deanna, we are wrapping up, but we do ask that you ask the next person a question. What would you like to know?
I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it. As the question is along the lines of, what would you do if you just asked yourself, what if? What's that thing that was, what if it worked? Whatever it was. What if? What would you do if there was something that you just wanted to, what if it worked?
Oh, we'll massage that. We'll get it. We'll get it.
Yeah,
ready.
you get the idea of the,
Yeah.
because people have asked me that kind of question too, and that's how I face my life. Like, how did you embrace spirituality going from science, right?
Mhm.
Well, I don't know for a fact that some of these things work as a scientist, but the question is, what if they do? Wow, why wouldn't I do it? What if it worked? What would you do? What would you do? And what, so thinking about, if there's something that's holding you back, well, that couldn't possibly, whatever. But what if it did? What would you
Got
do?
it.
Oh man, I'm going to be thinking about that for myself too now.
So that's how I get where I'm at. Is, well, what if it works? Try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it doesn't hurt anybody else, then who cares? Just try it.
Yeah, that what if question is very hard for two mega perfectionists.
Oh, I'm a Virgo.
I was going to say, I've never met a more perfect woman, a perfect Virgo from two perfect Virgo parents. The Holy Grail, it's right there.
Or two, or very difficult. You got three Virgos perfect. Maybe you can't put them in the same room. I don't know.
It's one of the things that I have learned to love is the journey. And because the sliver of perfection is so minuscule, that's one of the things that I love about me right now. It's the fact that I can enjoy the lead up to the accomplishment. And then one of the things that used to drive me crazy was perfecting something, but then getting bored right away and having to go on to the next thing to perfect it. And realizing now that there's so much fun in the learning and the perfecting of something, but before I go on to the next thing. So,
yep. Now you've got the name of Journey, right? That's where I'm on. Like the name of my business is Journey. The blue skies part comes from actually, it just happened after I had decided to divorce my ex-husband, because things had been so difficult. Life was so difficult at that time. I made the decision from here on out, it's blue skies. So that was decades ago when I made that decision. So when it was time to do a name for the business, I was like, that blue skies journey, that journey where everything is good. Everything, we're not even going to look at we're just going to do the good stuff. Let's do it.
And that's the same for us in Pear Genius. That was a name we came up with by accident when I don't know, like how many years ago, 15 years ago.
probably,
and we're like, one day we are going to work together. And then when it came time to name this podcast, and we're like, all resources are going this way. It's Pear Genius.
Yeah. So it just meant to happen, right? So you just listen to it.
We are a pretty cool superhero duo, though. I do like that about us.
You all guys are. I love working with both of you individually and together too. It's amazing.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Deanna, for joining us. And I'm going to put your website links in there at Blue Skies Journey. Is it blueskiesjourney.com? What is
yes, it is. Yep. Blueskiesjourney.com. On Instagram, on Facebook, you name it.
Can't wait for everybody to come see you because you
yeah,
are
me
awesome.
either. I love helping people. So I love it.
Awesome. So next time we're in town, you'll take me to the UNC campus and we'll go touring.
Duke campus? Maybe not UNC.
I'll go check out Duke too.
Okay. All right.
Awesome. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.